What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another MyGM video here in WWE 2K24. We have finished up the draft in the last episode, and now it is time to get to the fun stuff. It's time to get to the booking. We are officially on the road to the Hell in a Cell PLE, and so let's get this thing started. We have a commissioner goal this week from Triple H. We cannot book our most popular fighter, but it gives us a card for a 25% increase in fans for any episode or any show of our choosing. And so our most popular superstar right now is actually Asuka. I thought it was CM Punk, but it's actually Asuka. So we cannot book Asuka for this show. I obviously wanted to have her fight Rhea Ripley for our women's championship. We have decided to vacate all the belts and have them be decided here on our first show. I was trying to see if Asuka could do like a run-in or anything, but she can't do anything at all, or we fail that commissioner goal. And so a little bit of a challenge in our first show to not book Asuka, but I think it's okay overall. We still have Rhea Ripley. We can put her in that women's title picture against Wendy Chu, and I still feel pretty good about that. Now, we are going to book a promo between CM Punk and Braun Breaker because those are the two guys that I think we are going to have in our division for the World Championship. But what I quickly realized after I booked that was that you cannot have CM Punk fight and do a promo on the same episode. And so we had to cancel out the promo. And then I kind of was going to get a little creative here with making a triple threat match. I did want to have just Braun Breaker versus CM Punk, but I like the idea of adding LA Knight into this, especially with it being our first show. We want to come out with a bang, and so we set that up for our main event. Now we're trying to get the tag title picture set, and we're kind of looking at the roster here, and it's getting a little scarce pretty quickly, especially with that main event being a triple threat. You're taking away 4 superstars for a tag match. So we have Dom and Damian Priest against Josh Briggs and Carmelo Hayes set right now as the tag match. But that's going to create some hurdles for us here a little bit later in this show because we can't use Asuka. If we could use Asuka, it wouldn't be so bad because we could have Asuka fight Nikita Lyons, but we don't have the ability to do anything with her because of that goal. So that really kind of set us up a little bit, honestly, because it really made things difficult for booking this show because of the fact that we only have 4 women right now on the roster. So if you take away 1, you're down to 3. And obviously, if you have a one-on-one match, that just leaves 1 hanging. And so we just decide to get rid of the tag match and kind of go from there. And so we have Nikita Lyons do a promo because of the fact that she's, not really doing anything else this show, so why not have her in a promo? And then we decide to go with Carmelo Hayes against Josh Briggs for the men's title, which is our mid-card belt, basically. And was thinking about doing a run-in here of potentially having Damian Priest run in on Mello and setting them up for a feud, but trying to play around in this first show a little bit and get the right formula down for this card. This is the first time we've booked a show with this group, and I thought the draft I had was pretty good overall. I thought there was a lot of complimentary people that I drafted, but going through and actually booking the show kind of made me realize where there's some gaps in our roster that we're going to have to attack here at some point. I felt like we have a pretty good mix of baby faces and heels, but as you'll see here, we had to throw 2 heels against each other that didn't even mesh in Damon Kemp and Damian Priest. And obviously not being able to use Asuka even for a promo definitely hurts our card a little bit. But this is what we end up with here, and I decide between keeping LA Knight in that main event or having him do a promo, and I decide to take LA Knight out of the main event and have him do a promo because he does have a level 5 mic skill or promo skill, and I want to utilize that as much as I possibly can here in our first show. So I decided to go with just the main event being CM Punk versus Braun Breaker for the world title, and then having LA Knight do a promo, and again using his 5 out of 5 promo skill, which is a huge thing to have for anybody on your roster because it really does a lot for rivalries or getting their pop up or anything like that. And so now I was kind of deciding who I wanted LA Knight to get into a feud with. Would it be Damian Priest or Dom? That's kind of who I was trying to decide. And then I was kind of looking at our mid card here and having Mello and Josh Briggs, which is a good guy versus a good guy in that, is a little counterintuitive. And so what I decided to end up doing after all of that was putting Dom in this match against Josh Briggs, having Mello do a self promo to have be the first promo of the show, and then LA Knight calling out Dom, which sets up their rivalry. And this is the card we end up with. I should also note that we had utilized the tables match for both the opener and the main event because there were boosts for CM Punk and Rhea Ripley in tables matches. So I decided to go ahead and do that. And this is our opening card. I felt pretty good about it once I moved Dom into that title match against Josh Briggs and had Mello do the promo. So I feel pretty good about our card overall. And here we go. We are officially on our way. 3.5-star banger to start off WCW with Wendy Chu actually defeating Rhea Ripley. I did not see that one coming. I was hoping Rhea would honestly win that, but hey, we will roll with the punches. Carmelo ended up having a really weak promo, which was definitely a bit of a disappointment. Dom wins our mid-card belt, our men's belt, in a 2.5-star match. Going back to that promo with Melo for a second, when those guys have 3 mic skill, you really never know what you're going to get with that. Usually like 4 promo skill, 5 promo skill, you'll get a pretty good one, but 3 is kind of a hit or miss, and it's unfortunate that Melo got 0 pop for that. Meanwhile, LA Knight was able to get the rivalry up between him and Dom to a level 1, and we can pretty much rely on LA Knight and CM Punk, as they both have that 5 promo skill, to get the job done whenever we need them to on the mic, which is a great thing to have. And now we're on to our main event, CM Punk versus Braun Breaker in a tables match, and CM Punk is our inaugural WCW Heavyweight Champion. Pretty exciting. Our first round pick, the first pick in the draft, is the heavyweight champion. I think that makes sense. WCW and Monday Night Raw now, and looking at this Raw card, it's definitely an interesting one. They have Wolfgang against Dexter Lumis and Tyler Breeze in the main event against Otis for the World Heavyweight Championship. And you can look at the drama curve and all of the ratings here. Pretty good card for us. Pretty good for everyone, I felt like. I thought that obviously the Damian Priest match ended up kind of sucking. We just kind of had to put that one together. I didn't have high hopes for that. Still sucks. I wish we would have been able to get a little bit better from that than 1 star. But everyone had a pretty good show overall. I felt like, honestly, the ratings were pretty even. All the main events were 3 stars. We had the best opener, and we actually had the best second mid-card match as well. And then we had just a terrible second mid-card match, as you saw. But overall, honestly, very, very good first show for us, on par with the other 2 brands. So I feel pretty good about that. We also increase our budget by almost $50,000, which is great because, as you will see here in just a moment, we definitely have the least amount of budget. Now that makes sense because we did kind of go big game hunting in the draft a little bit. You see ECW is $150,000 already. And we did put a little bit into the show as well, just as far as doing the table matches and all those type of things. So we put a little bit into the show. But you see Raw with 142,000. So we're a little bit behind on the budget, which is fine, though. That's not a bad thing. We also do achieve that commissioner goal and pick up that bonus. As right now, we are second in the rankings. I'm not going to look too much into the rankings right now because it's obviously just been 1 show. I'll probably start taking those seriously after the Hell in a Cell PLE, to be honest, as Triple H was not too thrilled to see that Damian Priest versus Damon Kemp match, and honestly, I don't blame him. Second week here, commissioner goal is to book our least popular giant, and that will give us an injury rehab card. Now, our least popular giant is Josh Briggs. I believe that is our only giant. And so we have to not book Josh Briggs and we get that commissioner goal. Now, I am looking at the show logistics. It's a little too early to update these. We only have $84,000, but it's something to keep in mind because every time you unlock one of those, you also unlock a new match type. And looking at our roster, we have a lot of people right now who have Steel Cage and Tornado Tag, and then there's a couple last man standing, but it's really Steel Cage and Tornado Tag as the specialty matches. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at those, is you want to try to get those matches unlocked because you get that little bonus as well. So booking the show here in the second week, and like I mentioned before, you don't necessarily have to do the commissioner goal every week. Sometimes I think the cards are worth it, and other times I don't. I thought the card in week 1 was definitely worth going for because of the 25% fan increase for any show. I just think that's a really valuable card to have. If you're going to book a really stacked show, you can use that to try and get as many fans as possible. And so I wanted to have that card in our back pocket for future shows, honestly. And so I felt that one was definitely worth going after. This one I was a little bit more 50-50 on as we're booking the show. I'm keeping it in the back of my mind, but not really too much, I would say, as we're looking to get Braun Breaker on our card here, and I'm thinking about him versus Damian Priest potentially as a mid-card match. I was a little bit thrown off by the Damian Priest rating. I knew that match wasn't going to be very good, but I didn't want him to have two like kind of just throwaway matches in a row. I want to preserve Damian Priest because he's really valuable. I mean, he is a 57 pop right now. His stamina is low, but I do think he's going to be valuable for us as potentially a top heel. And so I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind. I don't want to just throw him to the wolves as we're setting up the card here. Damon Kemp, again, just kind of the odd man out, so I used him for advertising, and this is what the card ended up kind of looking like. So want to get the CM Punk and Braun Breaker rivalry going here, and so we're going to use Punk's promo skill. We're also going to have Mello call out Josh Briggs to set up that rivalry. I know that's two good guys, but I'm planning on flipping one of those here shortly once their levels get up high enough. We also have Dom going up against Josh Briggs, and then the main event, Rhea Ripley and Wendy Chu in a rematch. And just getting Asuka back and having that fourth women's superstar made a huge difference in booking this show, honestly. The match ended up not being very good, which kind of sucked. I was hoping that match would be better. Braun Breaker and Damian Priest here. Another one-star match for Damian Priest against Braun Breaker, of all people, which is very strange, honestly. I believe that match, maybe I put a run-in on that? I honestly can't remember. This one did have a run-in. LA Knight ran in against Dom, which again increased that rivalry. And then the main event here for the Women's Championship, another tables match, and this time it's Rhea Ripley capturing the Women's Championship. So we've had two Women's Champions in 2 weeks and two table matches. You gotta love it. And now Rhea Ripley's the champion. At least we finished off the show well. I think that Wendy Chu and Rhea Ripley have had two pretty good matches so far, 3.5 and 4-star. You'll certainly take that. And at this point, I wanted to kind of just sim through some of the matches here because I was just curious like how their promos were doing, because I'm always curious how the computer books these. It kind of gives me ideas sometimes, honestly. And so I was just wanting to see kind of what their ratings were, and I was looking like, okay, they're pretty similar overall. You see they put a world title match on last. Santos Escobar beats Miz. It got 3 stars, nothing too crazy. So I was like, okay, that made me feel a little bit better, because honestly, that second show was pretty disappointing. Our first show I thought was pretty good. That show was not very good. You can see the rating difference here between us and the other two brands, and although our main event slapped, the other 2 or 3 matches it really did not at all. And so we kind of got to go back to the drawing board a little bit. I didn't want to put too much into it, and I did not have a run-in on that Braun Breaker match. My apologies, but I didn't want to put too much into those matches because I was really trying to save the budget a little bit. And so you're kind of on that fine line of trying to save the budget, but at the same time trying to put on a good show. And so we end up with $53,000 in profit this week, though, which puts us in a pretty good budget range. I just wanted to get close to where the other two brands were. And we ended up picking up this card as well for the injury rehab. So I'll certainly take that. We are in last right now, but it is so early in this thing that it's pretty close. So I'm not overly concerned again. I'll probably start looking at that once we get to after Hell in a Cell. Dirty Dom wants his rematch against LA Knight, and we'll give it to him because that's a rivalry we're trying to set up, so that works. And Braun Breaker wants a rematch in the next 2 weeks against Damian Priest, and I thought that that would be doable because we could always have CM Punk run in on that or something like that. Talked about Damian Priest wanting to get him in some better matches than 2 one-star matches in a row. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. Looking again at these show logistics, I do want to purchase one of these here once our budget gets a little bit higher. I like to have more variety with our match types. Now, moving ahead to show number 3, I did just want to, for the interest of time in this video, show where our card ends up at here, because this show, for whatever reason, took me forever to book. I don't know why, but I was just like going back and forth with this one. So I just decided to show the finished product, to be honest. And so we go with CM Punk against Damian Priest in our opener. And I was debating here between using Damon Kemp for a little promo or the commissioner goal, but decided to just do the commissioner goal because the promo for Damon Kemp's not really going to give us that much. So I thought using the commissioner goal would be better use of our resources. We're also setting up that Wendy Chu and Rhea Ripley rivalry, at least hopefully. Josh Briggs, Mello in the mid card, and then the rematch. Went Extreme Rules on this Dom match here, and we'll see how that does in just a moment. Josh Briggs and Mello. Josh Briggs picks up the win in a mediocre match. Not a great start to the show. Was really hoping this one would do something for us here. Cost us $20,000 to put on, and it's a 3.5-star match with LA Knight becoming the new men's champion. So I was pretty happy about that. I was debating between putting the Dom LA Knight match or this match as the main event. Decided to go with Rhea and Asuka. With Asuka being our most popular superstar, I thought that made sense, but the Dom and LA Knight match ended up being better. So that ended up not really working out for us, but it did create a rivalry between Rhea Ripley and Asuka. So now we kind of have an interesting thing going on with some rivalries because we have Rhea feuding with Wendy Chu. We also have Rhea feuding with Asuka, which is our 2 biggest women. So have to make a decision there at some point of what we're going to do, honestly. And so we have some rivalries cooking. We have some good things cooking. Our match ratings have been definitely a little low compared to our competition, which has been a little bit of a disappointment. I've been trying to get as many classes that mesh together well as possible. I was noticing the computer does really try to emphasize on that, so I'm going to try and put even more emphasis on that in the next episode. But the computer's kind of kicking our ass right now a little bit, but that's okay. It's still early. Again, you have to kind of get your footing with your roster. You want your roster to kind of replicate your booking style, and we're trying to kind of find what that style is and who works with who right now. And so although we are last, I don't feel terrible. Our budget at least is in a good spot, and we are 1 week left until Hell in a Cell. Triple H giving us a little reminder here. We know Dom thanking us for giving him his rematch. And Rhea Ripley wanted to go on the mic this week and cut a promo. I didn't think that was a terrible idea because she has 2 rivalries now. We can kind of pick which one we want to go with at this point. And going back to the logistics page here, now at 150,000 budget, I do think it's time to purchase one. And so we go with the pyro effects. And now I'm just kind of simming through really quickly here because I want to show what was going on with our tag division at this point. We are in show number 4, and we have not crowned tag champions. Why is that? Well, it's hard when you have this small of a roster to book a tag division. I see the computer does it, and they do a very noble job. But we don't have men or women's tag champs right now, and so I'm trying my best to figure out what the best combination will be for getting a tag team match in here, crowning tag champs, but also still being able to put on a show that makes sense for the stories that we're trying to tell. And so we end up with Damian Priest and Damon Kemp against Carmelo Hayes and LA Knight. And we do set up a run in there with Dom as well because we do want that rivalry to continue. So now that we have, I guess, the quote unquote challenge at our hands here of booking this show with a tag match on it, let's see what we can do. We may have to not have a promo or something like that, but we do have Rhea Ripley use her 4 promo skill on Asuka. We decided to kind of go that route with the rivalry because honestly, that's our 2 biggest women right now. We want our most popular superstar going up against our champions, so I think that makes sense, right? Also debating if I want to pull the trigger on a CM Punk Braun Breaker match right now because obviously we would love to save that for the PLE, which is next week, but at the same time, we've struggled a little bit in the ratings right now. We're struggling a little bit with gaining fans and having really good matches. So I have that penciled in for our main event. We also go with Asuka against Nikita Lyons right after Rhea Ripley calls her out and hoping that Asuka picks up that win and continues on with her momentum. And I wanted to have Dom as a run-in here for this tag match, but again, we're very scarce with our roster when we have a tag match. So I decided to take him out of that and go with him against Josh Briggs, which is not bad because it's a cruiser and a giant and a heel cruiser against a babyface giant at that. So made sense to just have that happen, hope Dom wins and gets the momentum, and same with LA Knight, and then having them collide next week at the PLE. Debating here if I want to use this to the moon card, but decide not to, and this is what we end up with. So I noticed the computer sometimes doesn't use all of the promo slots, and I wanted to try that method to see how the show would do, because that's kind of what was getting me a little bit with the tag matches. We were like 1 person short, and so it's ended up not being too bad if you just keep that 1 slot empty. And we're going to crown some tag team champions here, and it is Carmelo Hayes and LA Knight. And that sets up a rivalry between Priest and Kemp and LA Knight and Mello, and we'll decide how much we want to really follow that, but at least we have the option, I suppose, as again, our matches just haven't really been doing very good. Our promos have been solid, which has been good, but our matches have been kind of mediocre at best, as Josh Briggs and Dom put on a pretty good match, and then a rematch here in a tables match. Braun Breaker picks up the win over CM Punk. 3-star match overall, not too bad, but it does get that rivalry up to 3 stars, which is really, really nice heading into the Hell in a Cell PLE, because that means we're going to be able to have Braun Breaker and CM Punk fight for the belt in the main event and have a rivalry that people care about, that people want to see. So that's been kind of the best thing we have going for us so far right now, honestly, has been the Braun Breaker CM Punk rivalry. Other than that, we are struggling a little bit to get things kind of going off the ground, but that's okay. It's still early, and honestly, a good PLE can change things pretty quickly, especially this early into the season. And so I'm not overly concerned, honestly. And we get that 50,000 back that we spent on the fog effects from one show. So not too bad at all. And we pick up another card, the sold out card, select an opposing brand, double the price of their next power card. Not a bad one to have. As you see here, Raw still in the lead as we are in Hell in a Cell. And wait a second, ECW is not playing fair. They are blocking 3 randomly selected champions. All we have are 3 champions right now because LA Knight is a tag champ and the men's mid-card champion. And so we cannot use any of our champions here in our PLE. You have got to be kidding me. Triple H is not happy. He is not happy, but he is gracious enough to give us local talent so we can put on a show here. I feel bad for those who bought a ticket to the Hell in a Cell PLE. I also was so startled and honestly just forgot to give Braun Breaker his rematch against Damian Priest. This was a pretty bad 5 minutes. We're already last, and it really can't get any worse. And so I told Nikita Lyons, look, not right now. Not right now. We're stressed a little bit. but we have to put on a PLE. And we don't have Rhea Ripley, we don't have CM Punk, and we don't have LA Knight to do that. And so we're going to have to get creative, to say the least. They've given us Sensational Starla and Quinn B to help us put on a show. They've given us 2 women, no men, which is not great as well because they took 2 men from us and 1 women superstar. So it's not great. But I'm trying to look at the rivalries and see how can we get creative. We still have Mello. We still have Damian Priest. We still have Damon Kemp. So we do still have that. We have Braun Breaker. If, hey, you want your rematch against Damian Priest, now would have been a great time for you. You couldn't have waited 1 more week. But we do have Asuka. We do have Wendy Chu. We do have Nikita Lyons. So we do still have Asuka, which is nice. We still have a 70 rated popular superstar. And so we decided to put her in here against Nikita Lyons. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was kind of just like you can kind of tell I'm frantically moving through the menus because that honestly caught me off guard. ECW playing dirty over there. Paul Heyman, I see you. And I'm going to tell you guys one thing right now. We are going to get our revenge on ECW. I see how they're playing. I see how they're sabotaging our PLEs. We've been collecting those cards from our commissioner goals over the past few weeks. We're going to use them. Don't you worry about that. I was going to try and hold on to them, but we're going to use them now. And I'm not playing around with ECW anymore, but I was frantically trying to book this show. I didn't know what to do, honestly, and I ended up with this. So Josh Briggs against Mello in the opener. Mid-card, Queen Bey against Wendy Chu. Asuka against Nikita Lyons, because obviously it's a PLE, so we get extra matches. We had Damon Kemp and Dom. And like I said, Braun Breaker, you wanted your match, you got it. And it's the main event as, okay, we'll take a 2-star as we used Sensational Starla for some advertising. Thank you for coming. Have a good night, Sensational Starla. Wendy Chu picks up a win. Yeah, we're not expecting great results here, honestly. See how Asuka does against Nikita Lyons. Honestly, we'll take 2.5 stars at this point. Obviously, we want more, but we'll take it. We will take what we can get. Dom against Damon Kemp. Yeah, 1 star. Was hoping for better, but again, when you just throw 2 bad guys against each other, it is what it is. And we decided to go Steel Cage here in this main event because I was hoping that would kind of save the show, honestly, and it did not. They did not have a good match. Damian Priest and Braun Breaker. Braun wanted that match so bad for him to put on a dud. Thank you, Braun. I appreciate that. And that was not very kind of you. So overall, we probably had the worst show of the bunch. But for the cards that was dealt, the literal card that ECW dealt upon us, I thought that we didn't have a terrible show. Honestly, we had some pretty decent matches. We got some rivalries along a little bit, at least the the Carmelo Hayes rivalry. So it wasn't awful at the end of the day, but ECW, that was smart. They really got us with that. But we will be getting our revenge as they took first place for that. So good for them. They did a nice job. It is what it is. I'll take the L. Moving on to the trade here, and I did offer Raw a trade because I wanted to see if I could trade Josh Briggs for Ivar straight up, just because I would prefer to have a healed giant versus a babyface giant, and I would have to flip Josh Briggs to that once he gets the high enough level, which could take some time. So I wanted to go with Ivar, but they just declined it, so we just moved on. Triple H is feeling sorry for us, so he gave us this homecoming card. Nice. I appreciate the hell out of that. We deserve it, honestly, after what happened to us at Hell in a Cell. Dom here wants to go into the main event picture, and I'm like, not right now. I don't want to break another promise, honestly. Braun Breaker wants to take 2 weeks off. This one I struggled a little bit with because I'm like, you've kind of been miserable around here. I forgot to give you your match against Damian Priest, although I gave it to you 1 week later and it sucked. But I really need him here right now. He is probably at our best rivalry against CM Punk, and I need him here. But he hasn't really been happy so far, so we'll have to work on that a little bit over the next couple shows and the next episode and getting his morale up a bit, which hopefully shouldn't be an issue, but maybe it will become one. Lastly, we had to pick our shakeup card and was debating between these 3. Decided to go with Champion's Resolve because I like the idea of booking a really strong champion out of the gate, whether that's CM Punk, Rhea Ripley, or someone of our choosing. I just like the idea of booking a really strong champion, and that card has the ability for the champions to win every match for 5 weeks, which I think is pretty nice, honestly. So decided to go with that card, and that will conclude this episode. So we got through 5 weeks of shows overall. I thought that this was a okay first kind of booking episode. Definitely some things looking back that I would change. I want to be a little bit more organized with my booking week in and week out in the next episode. So the next one will be definitely a little bit more structured and organized just as far as what we want to accomplish. Felt like this one I was just trying to establish our champions, establish some rivalries, and obviously ECW threw in a huge curveball at the end. So shout out to Paul Heyman. That was a smart move. And now I know, let's just use some of these cards that we have because we have a plethora of them. And so we're going to use them to our advantage in the next episode. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of the support. Let me know how you thought we did overall here in this episode. Anything that you think we could do to improve in the next episode, definitely let me know as well, as I'm still trying to learn my GM. There's so many different things in this mode that I'm sure you all probably know a lot more than I do. So thank you all so much for watching. Appreciate the support. As I always say, thank you, and I will see you all in the next episode.